And what Jeff was talking about, and what this moves me towards is this: what's the alternative to keeping money in the bank? I want you to pay attention to what Alan Greenspan said back in 1967. This was before he became the Fed chairman. You know, before he got persuaded. I don't know. I'm not going to say anything bad about Alan. He's a good guy, smart guy. But what he said before he's the Federal Reserve Chairman for the U.S. is, in the absence of gold, there is no way to protect your savings from confiscation through inflation. There is no safe store of value. Gold is a constant purchasing power over time. Okay? Alan Greenspan was no dummy. He's a smart guy. When he said this, he knew that if fractional reserve banking continues and continues and continues at the rate it was back in 1967, that people's savings would be confiscated without them knowing. Now, back in 1933, FDR did the confiscation really public out there, said, guys, give us your gold, and we're going to pay you cash.
When was that?
1933. Okay? Now, they're getting a little bit more creative to confiscate your money. They're using inflation. And when I say they, I'm not pointing to a bunch of people in the back room. By they, I mean the people who are proliferating the system. Now, some of these people are proliferating the system and not even knowing it. They actually believe they're doing a good thing. They actually believe they're doing a good job. And there's a lot of good people who are part of the proliferation of the system who are actually really solid people. They just don't know what's going on. So if we take a look at what Greenspan is saying, the way to protect your savings is with gold. Why? Because every time you're in the media, a bailout, and you hear the money in my bank is worth less, the value of my bank account is worth less, where that value is being confiscated to is to gold and silver. It's funny how when there's a bailout, the price of commodities rises. But not just any commodity, specifically gold and silver, or nowadays oil, which is called black gold in some circles. Because the value goes from the paper dollars that are losing their value to these commodities that are positioned and by design set to rise. So, if we look at this, here's what Alan Greenspan was talking about. Because like I said, Alan Greenspan was smart. He was a student of history, a historian, besides being a very brilliant economic mind. He knew this. 2,000 years ago, 1 ounce of gold in Rome, ancient Rome, bought you a toga and a nice pair of leather slippers. It clothed you nicely. 100 years ago, an ounce of gold, which was worth $20 at that time, bought you a nice suit, nice leather shoes, and a nice hat. It clothed a person very nicely. Today, 1 ounce of gold, what's the price of an ounce of gold nowadays? $1,200 bucks. $1,250.
15.
$1,215. Yep. So, do you think if you had $1,215 in your pocket, you could buy a nice suit, nice hat, nice shoes?
Not for very listen.
They're saying yes. Yeah, no.
Right? The point is, over 2,000 years, an ounce of gold retained its value in that it could be exchanged for the material to clothe a person very nicely. That's what Greenspan was talking about. The only thing that could protect your savings is gold. So I throw this chart up here just to bring it global. This here is from a website called goldsilver.com. That's Mike Maloney. Mike Maloney is Robert Kiyosaki's Rich Dad advisor he wrote the book, Rich Dad's Guide to Investing in Gold and Silver. He's got a really cool website, very up-to-date information. And he threw this up, he did a study, he called it the race to debase. In January of 2010, The Canadian dollar, it took 1,154 bucks to buy an ounce of gold. Czech, I use it because I was in Czech. It took 20,000 crowns. In January, it took 766 euros, about 1,000 US dollars, 700 IMF SDRs. How many people have heard of an SDR, special drawing right? Okay, cool. If you haven't, I highly recommend you research this. This funny thing here with the International Money Fund SDR, the G20 summit here in Toronto, one of the items on the agenda was to discuss the possibility of having the SDR be moved up a notch in the world currencies being proposed to replace the US dollar as a world reserve currency. Now, is that going to happen anytime soon? I don't think so, but it could. So, in January, it took 700 SDRs to buy an ounce of gold. 6 months later, just 6 months this year, Canadian, 1,300, 26,000 Czech crowns, 1,000 euro, 800 SDRs, 1,200 US dollars. In just 6 months for a percent change of these. So what does that mean? Every time these paper currencies, you're starting to see how they're more, it takes more to buy an ounce of gold. What that just means to you and I is each Canadian dollar, Czech crown, euro, SDR, US dollar just got reduced in value by this much. And the value went to gold. The other chart is for silver. You'll notice the same trend. All increases in just 6 months. It really is a race to debase. World currencies are facing, world governments and central banks are confronting, do they deflate, which means let their economies slow down and stop. What that means to politicians is they will not get reelected. Or do they turn up the printing presses, print more money? If you're a politician, what do you say? I want my job next term. Let's print more money. Okay? Now, a lot of people have asked me over time, they say to me, well, gold and silver are doing bad, you know, in the summertime. And I just say, well, yeah, I can get that. And again, Mike Maloney in his wisdom throws up this chart here. And what he's done is he's tracked the change in the price of gold per month over the last 30 years. So the blue bar represents from 1980 to 2010, and the red bar just denotes in the last decade the percent change in gold's prices per month. And what he found historically is, in the summer, there's a drop. And as we know, in August, gold has actually come and broke back above 1,200, which is consistent with August. Okay? So all that's saying is gold will do whatever it does. Why this happens in the summer is because jewelers who supply a lot of the demand go on vacation. So they're not making jewelry and they're not ordering gold. Another reason why is a lot of major institutions who makes up the rest of the lion's share of investments in gold and silver, they're doing their taxes right around June. So what are they doing? They're cashing out their gold reserves so that they can pay off their debt so that their taxes actually look good and they can actually show a profit. So massive exchange at the level of these major institutional buyers happens, the consolidation phase around June and July. But check out, look what happens in September. Another minor correction is going to come in October, November, December. I'm throwing this up to you because I'm telling you, not just so you can hear it from me, I'm giving you the sources where I'm learning from. And Mike Maloney's not a dummy. This guy travels the world speaking on gold and silver. That's it. That's his passion. So I'm throwing this up here to give you an idea of what's happening so you can notice. And you're not going to be hooked by people telling you, oh, gold is not doing too hot. Well, you can have an educated response to that. When people say that to me, I just say, okay, that's excellent for the month of June and July. Let's look at the last 6,000 years. That's usually the response I get, blank stares. Not many people actually go and research 6,000 years. Not many people go back to ancient Egypt and actually see, wow, they actually transacted in gold and silver. My goodness, even right through the Roman Empire, gold and silver. Okay, so I throw that up there because I anticipate people's reaction to what's going on in the market. And what I'm intending to impart on you is this: the stuff I'm talking about is not. I don't research this stuff with a matter of months or years. I've researched this stuff in the time scale of millennia. Okay, when you begin to investigate history at the time scale of millennia, you'll start to notice a lot of familiar trends that are happening today that have repeated themselves over and over and over again. It's just a surprise to us because we weren't alive 1,000 years ago. To us, this is like, oh my goodness, this never happened before in history. Actually, yeah, it has. We just weren't born yet. Okay? All right. This is what I mean. Another thing people say is, well, okay, I've been hearing gold a lot in the media. That must mean that everybody's doing it. Everybody's investing in gold. It probably is not the right time to save in gold. Yeah, well, let's take a look at that. Here's a graph of the amount of money being held in US money market funds. This is typically held by baby boomers. $2.85 trillion are being held in these money market funds, these pension funds. 78.3 billion is what's being held right now in gold and silver ETFs. A lot of people would say, yeah, but China's doing, they just bought $14.6 billion worth of gold in the past few years. China's got all the gold. Well, yeah, until you realize that China's sitting on 2.45 trillion in reserves. So 14.6 billion is only 0.5% of what China has in reserves to continue to invest in gold and silver. This ratio here in the US, it's only 2.7% of the money that's currently invested in markets is right now in gold and silver. It's still tied up in money market funds. My question to you is, what if that 2.7% were to be increased to 5%? What if it just doubled? What do you think that would do to the price of gold? Do you think it would go up or down?
Tough question.
It's a trick question.
I don't know, man.
Price of gold would probably skyrocket. What if the baby boomers started to actually get, oh my goodness, my pension fund is not doing so hot in my money market? And they actually, by some grace of God, get educated that the longer they keep their paper dollars in the money market fund, the longer it will lose its value. And when these baby boomers start to see, okay, well, what should I do? Well, you should get an allocation in gold and silver. Oh, okay, it's in flick of a button, they just transfer a very conservative amount, 10% of their allocation, their portfolio allocation to gold and silver. 10% of this. What is that? That's only 285 billion. Now I'm saying this because that's probably not going to happen tomorrow. But again, we're talking in time scales here. What if that happens over the next 3 years, 5 years, even 10 years? That massive shift of a tiny allocation of a portfolio, like what's 10% of a portfolio? It's not a big deal. But when these baby boomers and other people who are invested in paper right now start to see, okay, just to be conservative, to hedge against inflation, I'm going to put just 10% of my portfolio in gold and silver. When that starts to happen, there's a massive shift that will begin to force the price of gold and silver up.